Hello, and thank you for calling. You've reached the human voicemail. Unfortunately, humanity is gone. Please leave a message after the tone. We appreciate your time, and we will not return your call. You will not be remembered.
Okay, there we go. We should be good. I wanted just to give you a little perspective. A little walk up to the river this time. Hopefully I left enough time there for the intro. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do. I have it recording in auto because the sunsets happen so fast. Kind of goes into what we're going to talk about today. I guess I'll just stop and give you a sneak peek real quick as to what we're talking about. Yep. If you're getting angry at any of this internet online stuff, then let me tell you, you're just frying your brain, literally, for no reason. But that's kind of what we talked about last video. But man, these mosquitoes, if this were a simulation, there wouldn't be so many mosquitoes. They wouldn't do that to me. Or us, I guess we'll go all the way down, huh? Oh, wow, you're gonna get to see some jet skiers. Look at that. Always something cool down by the river. Never fails to disappoint, and you wouldn't have seen that. Well, I guess you could have seen that on the internet, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean. This big old towers over. Oh! Jeez Louise. We're looking this way this time. Oh, man. It's really muddy here. But, show this one more time. All right, well, now that we've covered the intro, I'd like to, once again, thank the mean orange bean sir for all of his kind comments. Iron sharpens iron. And you might hear the waves splashing, or see them. All right, so I want to ask you this question genuinely. Whoa. I'd be really careful on here. Do other people's opinions make you feel hate? Just what other people are thinking. It's not the same as what you're thinking, obviously, because it upsets you. Is it making you hate them? Okay. So, is that helping you in your community, right? Last episode we talked about that's kind of like the only thing that's really important. Like, how is it helping you to hate other people because they think different than you? No matter how horrendous it is. But, like, especially if it's, just like a difference. There are people who hate people for liking Pepsi versus Coke. You know what I mean? Like, obviously there are some absolutely hateful things. Sorry, you guys get to see this for sure. And is this hate in your life, just a coping mechanism to distract you from the evil things that you're letting consume your own life? Is it preventing you from seeing your hometown get destroyed? And you're like, well, instead of going out there and doing something and saying, hey, I'm going to make the things I see wrong better. And you can't fix everything, I'll admit that. But, like, is hating online going to fix it? No. And then, another kind of thing, talking about communities and problems and whatnot. Like, do you want a foreigner, like just straight up someone from another country, to come into your country, into your community, and lead your community. You know, now I like let's just like break this down, like not make this xenophobic or ophobic, mexophobic, Indiaphobic, homophobic. I don't care. It's not about that. It's about who knows what's best, right? Does someone who's lived in this community for 50 years know best? Does someone who's lived in another community for 50 years know best? You know, who's going to make the best decision for your community? And, you know, if somebody's lived there for, 40, 50 years and, they haven't been there hundreds of years, well, hey, I'll say that's better than a guy fresh off the boat from War of the Plain, and it's like we're making these decisions to let these people rule us over our communities, and then we're like, oh, I have no idea why my government's not doing anything in my people's interests and our community's interests. It's like they came in here and they told us, and it's like, yeah, dude, you can't believe all these lies. And the only reason these lies work is because you're filled with hate. And so this hate is distracting you on all sides, right? Because like we started yesterday, like we started with something that ascended politics completely. Okay. Well, if I hate that you want low-income housing in this neighborhood, and I hate that you want to legalize weed or whatever weird shit we're on next, well, the whole time they're like selling the land out from under us. The whole time, like, they're de-beautifying and uglifying our communities and putting up these disgusting architecture and destroying our culture, and bringing in, Microsoft laying off 9,000 people and at the same breath in the same month requesting 13,000 H-1B visas. Like, how can we allow a corporation, which, by the way, those 9,000 people lived in communities, those 9,000 Americans lived in communities, how can we even allow that to happen? You know what I mean? Because our government's allowing that. They're saying, yeah, you can lay off 9,000 Americans and then say, oh, I want 13,000 foreigners to replace them. And they're coming here, right? Like, that's what H-1B visas are. It's not their offshoring, it's inshoring. So hating online and this stuff is like really distracting. Like, there's like 3 main issues that we should be worried about that ascend politics, and all that other stuff really, like, let's let the people who live on that land decide what to do with that land, whatever their opinions are, right? And then we'll let the results speak for themselves. Like in California or LA, it's like, okay, the results speak for themselves. And then you go to other places where it's like tweaker country, it's like, okay, results speak for themselves, But one thing that like shouldn't be happening is like electing literally like people who have no skin in this game, and then we're surprised that they prioritize foreigners when we elected a foreigner to be in charge of us. I'll let you guess who and what I'm talking about, but it happens all the time, right? When's the last time you told someone you love them? Do you tell people that you hate them more than you tell them that you love them? And what do you think that's doing? I want to be very clear and upfront about this. I love you, whoever's watching this. I love you. And I hope you hear that every day, all day. And this is going to sound so corny, but I have to say it. That, like, you don't need anyone to love you. You gotta love you first, or there's no future, right? Your life's not going to be worth living at all whatsoever. So that's kind of huge. And are you hateful because it justifies your state in perpetual cycle of loneliness, right? Because, like, if you love people, nothing hurts more than being alone. I'll say it again, because that is worth repeating. If you love people, there's nothing worse than being alone. But if you hate people, being alone is the logical conclusion of hate. You don't want to be around anyone because you hate them. It's that simple. And when you do love, you know what I mean? What are you doing? Oh, you're being vulnerable. You're telling them your opinions. You know what I mean? You're You're asking them what's wrong, and they're asking what's wrong with you. How can I help you? Oh, I hope you're doing well. Or like Orange Beans Sir. He told me, I said, this is what the universe brought me to do, is to be here. And it's, and the universe told him to give me these words of advice and wisdom. And he said, let the universe continue cooking. And that's kind of what happens when you let love into your heart. Even if we all disagree on a ton of shit. Now, I have a reading, again. I know. And let's talk about value. How much do you think this book is? I'll give you a couple seconds. 3, 2, 1. $1.25. And I could easily, brought a Bible out, or, one of the sutras from the Buddhist religion. Philosophy is a religion in itself. It's just like a mishmash. And maybe I'll do that later. But I don't want anybody to think that, you know what I mean? People think a certain way, even though you really should not think any way about anyone. You should just judge it based off its merits. You shouldn't care who the messenger is. You should care about the message. Does it resonate with you? And is this message making your heart full of love or hate? Think about that. When you watch something on YouTube next, drama, I've watched hundreds of hours of hateful YouTube drama. Pirate Software, now Ordinary Gamer. And I leave every single one of those and I'm like, dude, this is just like hate porn. This is just haters gooning off together. It's like possibly as destructive as actual porn on your brain. Especially if you're consuming drama content every day. I mean, he put on Ordinary Gamers though deserves all of it because he put on the Sony Chu medallion, which is straight up a demonic, it's hard to even argue that like demons aren't real after you see the power of the Sony Chu medallion. I'll just say that. Okay, so this is actually, I think, hyper relevant. Oh, I'm so sorry if that was loud. Materialism, 1881 to 1930. So let's just break it in the middle and say he was talking about this in 1900. I'm just going to leave it a little blurry because Orange Beans Sir did say blurry was kind of a vibe. So, it's impressionism, right? You're looking at the blur and you're saying, oh, I see his shadow in the blur. He talks with his hands. And why doesn't he want us to see him? It's because I am just a shadow. I'm a shadow of everyone I've ever met, everything I've ever read, everything I've ever seen. And if I stared into the abyss, there's parts of that are still with me today. And I can either choose to, let that consume my shadow and my voice and my message, or I can fight against it. So let's see what he has to say about materialism in 1900, before gooning, before ChatGPT, before any of that. So he's talking about if we had a computer big enough in 1900, right? Or not even a computer. He's saying if we were able to do the math and guess every possible conclusion of the universe, we would we'd be able to find everything to the detail. Like basically the universe is deterministic. That's an opinion, right? And so it says, here we go. With an absolute knowledge of all conditions at work, we could prophesy the exact number of ounces of gold that any specified rise of bank rate would divert into this country. Such a knowledge, of course, is forever impossible, since the factors concerned are innumerable and severely minute. To apply mathematical analysis to them, even if they could all be collected, would infinitely transcend our powers. So basically, there's no hope in answering every question. And in this case, he was using, if there's a disaster, then more gold, gets taken out or put into banks, right? And if you knew everything about math, just like the stock market, you'd be able to perfectly guess when shit goes up by how much and when it goes down by how much. But even then, before, in 1900, he's saying that is infinitely transcending our human powers. So don't waste your time looking into the abyss and asking questions that we don't have answers to. Look literally anywhere else. Now I'll continue. Nevertheless, we shall be led to adopt the proposition of Laplace, to the effect that if we knew the precise disposition at any moment of all matter and energy existing in the universe and the direction of the motion of every moving particle, and if we were armed with the mathematics of infinite power, we should be able to prophesy or guess the exact disposition of all matter and energy in the universe at any future time. Any being who possessed such powers and who a myriad ages ago had acquired absolute knowledge at some moment of the nebula from which the solar system rose would have been able to prophesy or guess that at this present moment there would exist a being identical with myself who would be writing the words that are now flowing from my pen. He would have been able to prophesy that a little later other beings identical with my readers, such as myself literally right now, would be perusing those words, and he would be aware of what emotions would be excited within them by this perusal or perusing or just reading. He could have said something simpler, but he didn't. It was 1900, and he didn't want to be labeled a common folk for some strange reason. So, and you would also be able to prophesize that I am making this video right now and talking to you. So, we don't even know what we're doing. Nobody has the power. We don't have the compute. We know still to this day it's absolutely impossible, to get it down that pat. Let's see, what else I say? Oh, the reason for this early, space exploration, why they looked out at the stars and whatnot before they had internet, shocker, right? Is because we all survey the universe from the standpoint of our own centrality. Subjectively, we all do stand, actually, at the center of the universe. You right now, looking at your phone, looking at your desktop, whatever, as you perceive it, you are the center of the universe. And there's nothing you can do about it. You could, take some shrooms, get your ego death, but you're trapped. You're going right back to the center of the universe when you're done having your break. Our entire experience of the universe is an experience of it as it affects ourselves, for it does not affect ourselves. We know of it only indirectly. I was that saying, if it didn't affect us, then we would only have, indirect knowledge of it. Like when we were, kids. We did not perceive ourselves at the center of the universe necessarily when we were kids. We didn't even know what the universe was, right? And then he goes into just talking about how everyone has their own explanation. Some people say that men are the center of the universe. Some people say that's their nation or their society, or, for millions of years, like the cave paintings, like the people who painted the caves, they thought their little tribe, their little unit was the center of the universe. And then he says this, which is kind of controversial, or we may regard our own sex as the proposed product of the universe, as in many Mohammedan peoples, or people who follow Muhammad, who hold that women have not souls like men, and that they exist purely for the benefit or use of men, in the same way in the same way that cattle exist in order to be eaten, or that melons are ribbed to indicate the proper amount of one portion. Earlier he talked about somebody said that melons have ribs in them. I'm not sure if he's talking about honeysuckle, watermelon, but melons have the ribs in them so that we could divide them evenly and a family could eat them, right? Let's see. Here we go. Oops. 324. Pardon me. I might just have to... Okay, here we go. To those whose inclinations dispose them to deny the utility of so unpopular a philosophy, I reply, it does not matter whether this philosophy is useful or not. Truth is an ideal which is worthy to be pursued on its own sake, without reference to its utility. So, when you're, just find your truth. And that sounds really crazy, right? But, find what, is going to make you feel fulfilled. Find your purpose, and your purpose then, therein becomes your truth, For me, it's like, you got to try and make your community a better place. You got to spread, you got to, not be hateful. You got to be careful what you're putting into your brain. And he's talking about people who do spread this goodness, like Orange Bean Sir is one of them. These goods we supply need have no practical utility whatever. This may not be useful for you. That's not the point at all. And so far from being adapted to a popular demand, we continue to turn out our goods, even in spite of extreme popular dislike, like Mudahar, right? He keeps putting out videos despite all the hate. We do not seek to justify our course by any such considerations, nor is it worth our time or while to take up the easy task of proving that the happiness and progress of humanity have depended far more on the transcendental researches of the savant than on the humble utilitarianism of the tradesman. It is enough for us to have before us a great ideal of truth, and to know enough, and to know that even though we may be mistaken, we have done our best towards the enlightenment. Our motto has been given to us. Let us continue our work without consciousness of any ulterior end. Let us continue to pursue our labors after knowledge to whatever unknown goal they may leave us. Just as I was saying before with what Beansir told me, let the universe cook. And that's all the philosophy. And now we're going to go through my discarded notes that I tore up. Okay. Israel stuff. Better not say that. Oh, these are some questions I asked yourself. What's the worst belief someone can hold? Does every single person on this planet have a belief you disagree with? Like, is there any one individual who agrees with you 100% on everything? And if you hate some people for disagreeing with you, why not just hate everyone and be alone forever and lock in with the abyss? You know what I mean? That's why we got to get rid of this, like, hating people for disagreeing with our opinions, and we need to love that we have an opportunity to learn. And don't go devil advocate saying, oh, well, what about the people who think Channing Tatum is like shouldn't have won the hottest man alive? Okay, well, some opinions are worth just like keeping to yourself. And is it worth this hate? We're talking about opinions on how you live. Is it worth hating these people? Because it's preventing you from living and making your community better. You cannot convince me it takes zero energy to hate. It does take your energy. And we only have so much energy. Like, I was like failing to read those passages because I was getting eaten by so many bugs and I was sweating so much that, like, you know what I mean? And sinking in the mud. And it's like, man, I need to lock in. Because this is important. This communication we have with each other is probably the most important thing we'll do on planet Earth. Being outside and just witnessing the Earth. Can questions be evil? That is a question. But you know what I mean? Like, I've lived my whole life, and it's like, you ask questions, and are you meeting people who ask you questions with hate? And what does that say about you? What, and do you not realize you just gave them the answer? There's 1,000 examples of this, but, for instance, if I ask you, let's just do a simple one. What'd you eat today? You get angry at me. Are you unhappy with what you ate today? If I ask you what you did today, or you ask me what I did today, I say, oh, it's none of your business. Fuck you. Does that not say a bunch about me? Does that mean I'm unhappy and I hate myself for how I spent my day? And I've had days like that. Like we all have. And so these questions, these opinions you think are bad and they make you angry, are you just prejudiced to introspection? Like, are you against looking inward and improving yourself? Because I'll tell you this, you'll never improve yourself unless you have a real conversation about where you are. You know what I mean? How can you level up if you don't know what level you're on? And that goes for everything, right? Like, you have to be able to measure yourself. That's not height. That's not di. That's, you got to measure your happiness. You got to measure your deeds. You got to measure. And then you can do something about it, When Orange Bean said do it, I said, well, what else, why haven't I done this? I've had this, not necessarily dream, but like I've had this desire to do this for so long and I haven't. And all I have to do is come out here. All right, well, that's River Talk 2 and outro time. Okay, I am a little sick. I did cut my finger open earlier. I mean, these are all excuses. Here's my outro. Love of mine, someday you will die. I'll be close behind, pull you into the dark. Blinding light, no tunnels or gates of light. So our hands clasp so tight, waiting for the hint of a spark. If heaven or hell decide that they both are satisfied, illuminate the nose on the vacancy signs. There's no one besides you when you're so apart, then I'll follow you into the dark. Catholic school, as vicious as Roman rule. I got my knuckles bruised by a lady in black. I held my tongue as she told me, son, fear is the heart of love, and I never went back. If heaven or hell decide that they both are satisfied, illuminate the nose on the vacancy signs. If there's no one besides you and you're so lost, then I'll follow you to the dawn. You and me, seen everything to see, from Bangkok to Calgary. Soles of your shoes all worn down. The time for sleep is now. It's nothing to cry about, so hold each other soon. In the darkest of rooms, if heaven or hell decide that they both are satisfied, illuminate the nose on the vacancy signs. There's no one besides you and your soul parts. I'll follow you into the dark. That's the outro about, tell someone you love them. They may not be here tomorrow. That's real. Share something with someone, You might not be here tomorrow. It's real. Glad I got to share this with you. Have a great rest of your day. See you in the next one.